Hey, welcome everyone to ChurchTechCast.com's Q&A show. If you have any questions, feel free to drop me a line, Paul at trinitydigitalmedia.com, or you can reply me at Paul Allen Cliff. That's the @ sign, of course, PaulAlanclif. I, of course, am Paul Allen Clifford, hence the Paul Allen Cliff talk, and I just want you to join me. It looks like someone did call the voicemail number 1-877-763-3246, but I did not get the message, so if that was you, please call back. So let's get started with the questions that I've accumulated over the past week. The very first one I actually missed from my list last week, so I've moved it over to this list, and we'll get started going. Hey guys, a rural church close to us is thinking about doing a multi-site. What are some of the basic hardware, software that they'll need? Thanks. So the first question that sprung up from this discussion over on Google Plus was, what is multi-site? And if you're not familiar, basically the idea of multi-site is being able to multiply the impact of a church in multiple geographic locations. While it's the case that at my church we do have people that are willing to drive from 90 minutes away or even farther to attend our church, not everyone is. And what we're looking to do is to reach out to people that are only slightly sure that they may want to go to church. Our church isn't a church for everybody, it's a church for everybody else. So what we're doing is we're doing a multi-site campus. We've got 2 campuses right now. Our main original first campus in Lexington, Kentucky, and our second campus in Frankfort, Kentucky, where I'm the video guy. And what the purpose of that is so that people don't have to drive very far away, and our pastor delivers, well, the teaching team. It's a different pastor every week. Sometimes the senior pastor will do it a few weeks in a row, but generally speaking, it's a mix of our teaching pastors. They deliver the message on Saturday night. It's recorded, edited, and then taken Sunday morning. And then there's live praise and worship. If there's a drama, that tends to be live. Live testimonies is what they used to be called. We call them stories. Those things are all live and in person, and then the teaching pastor's teaching is pre-recorded. So that means that you can have one church in multiple locations. It's kind of a franchise model, if you want to think of it that way. More a franchise than like a mission or church plant model. So slightly different. So anyway, what do you need to do multi-site? Well, first off, you need video cameras to record the service. You also need the ability to edit that for time or content, etc. And you need good audio. Then at the remote campus, you need a projector and screen that's able to show that. So that's, from the video standpoint at least, the bare minimum. I know Seacoast in I think they're in North Carolina. Charleston, North Carolina, I believe. It could be South Carolina. Maybe it is South Carolina. Anyway, what they do is they will start a campus whether or not they have musicians, and then just pipe in the music from the central campus and go from there. They do expect to have a campus pastor at each location, but the campus pastor could be someone who's just risen in the ranks as a life group leader, life group coach, that kind of thing. So you definitely need personnel on site. You need some technology, but probably most of it is going to be at the remote site or at the original campus. So what we do at Quest is we shoot our service. It's a multi-camera shoot. We've got 4 cameras, and record that on 2 different computers running Final Cut Pro. We record that, and then I go back after the service and I chop off the beginning so that we start at the message, or if there's a walk-up video, that gets included. And then I end after the pastor prays or walks off the stage having completed what he or she's going to say. So that's basically it. Now, I play all that in ProPresenter because I'm a big ProPresenter fan, and it seems like it's really good software for this. We do have 2 iMacs running ProPresenter at the same time, so that if, heaven forbid, we have a problem with one, we can always go to the second. So that's basically the technology stuff that's behind the scenes of what's going on. Now, on Monday, Chris, who's often in our chat room, asked, what are some tips for training my camera guys? So the first thing I asked him is whether their screens were 4:3, the traditional aspect ratio, or 16:9, and they are 4:3. So that makes it a little bit difficult because you don't have as much room on either side for the pastor to walk in and walk out of. So that's one thing for you to consider as you're training your camera people. I would absolutely train them on shot composition. I would train them on the rule of thirds. I would train them on headroom, lead room, nose room, as well as focusing. I wouldn't rely on an autofocus. Autofocus is getting better, but it's not quite what it used to be, or what it needs to be. It's not quite what our eyes have. So you train them to zoom in all the way on the subject, focus, zoom out, and they're good, assuming that the lens's back focus is appropriate. So those are all things that I would absolutely train your camera people on. I would train them to pay a lot of attention to what's going on and not get easily distracted. That's very important. It's also important to keep good, steady shots and go from there. So I think that's basically all I would talk about, and I suppose you could also get into some of the physics involved in a camera. So the gain settings of your camera, or if you were doing DSLRs, it would be the ISO setting, the aperture, which is analogous to the iris in your eye, and how that affects depth of field, and also shutter speed and how that affects your image, and the choppiness versus the smoothness of the image. So I think those things. I'd also touch on white balance. But depending on your setup, it could be the camera people won't need to deal with all of those. So Peter Carlson on Google Plus asks, our church is growing and hiring some more staff, and the need for a shared network drive to house up-to-date documents is more pressing. I'm pushing for a cloud-based solution to better accommodate working remotely, which most of us do, rather than a VPN or something. Do you recommend Dropbox or Google Drive to get this done? Well, there was a lively discussion. The first response was, well, clearly Google Drive, and I responded, no, I think Dropbox is better. And so if you're using Google apps, like the word processor, the spreadsheet, that kind of stuff, then Google is the natural choice. But the thing that I really like about Dropbox is once you install it, it's pretty seamless to the user, but you can absolutely make changes in one machine and they're automatically reflected on another. So that's something that's really great. It's not all that difficult to use. Someone also pointed out that there's versioning in Dropbox, including if you accidentally delete something, you can get it back. So that's also something for you to keep in mind as you're choosing that. There were a couple of suggestions to either roll your own or do something like that. You could absolutely do like a pogo plug, which would be fairly easy to accomplish, and basically you create a network drive for storage of documents on all of the computers, and then the people would deal with those. Part of the downside of Google Drive, and to a certain extent Dropbox, is you don't have control over that. It's absolutely the case that with Google Drive, if they for some reason think that you're being malicious, they could shut down your account, and then it's kind of hard to say, no, I didn't do anything bad. I've had that problem myself where I got a message that, oh, something bad has happened with this account, and when I contacted someone, they go, oh, our bad, our mistake, we'll fix it. And they did, but they wouldn't tell me what was wrong. So I was trying to figure out what I did, if anything. If I didn't do anything, if it was on their end, or if someone had attempted to hijack my site or something. I don't know. But so that's some other cautions to keep in mind. In response to the what I do question last week that I answered from Gawi Vidmurwa, I'm sure I butchered that, I'm sorry, on Twitter, at what let me try that again. At what church are you live streaming of, or are you doing it from somewhere else? So I thought that might be interesting for all of you. I am at my home office. I own this ministry, trinitydigitalmedia.com, and what I do is this. I train churches and I provide help, and I do that primarily through this live stream, but I can also do consulting or one-on-one questions and answers or keynotes, teach classes, any of those things. So that's actually what I do. I'm not actually streaming from my church. My church does stream, but I have a separate account and do this through separate means. So this isn't endorsed by them or anything like that. This is a whole different animal. Okay, on Google Plus, this kind of relates to this week's Eternity Changers show. With all the hullabaloo going around about overcoming fears so that we can do something remarkable, I found this article to be a breath of fresh air. Fear is not the issue, mediocrity is. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Then he linked to a post that I won't tell you about, but it basically said that courage was useless, that hard work was the answer. And while I can see where he's coming from, I think that personally, fear drove me to not do what I'm doing for a long, long time. It was only the passion that I had to help churches and to see the gospel advanced that eventually caused me to break out of that. So here I am a couple of years later, and it's still sometimes a little scary. I'm not going to lie to you. And I have a passion for this. And I think that I'm at least halfway decent and getting a little bit better every day that I do this. So I absolutely think you need passion to accomplish something. You need an opportunity to do it, and you need the skill set to accomplish it. Now, you can fudge some of those. Your passion doesn't have to be your greatest passion in life. It could just be something that you feel intently about. What you're good at, it could be that you're not yet where you're going to be. You're still in the learning process, but you're far enough along that someone would pay you to do it. It's not that you're just starting out, you've taken a class and you think you're an expert. I've met people like that. I've been that person before. But I don't want you to go that far. But you do need an opportunity. There must be a market for what you're doing. And when those things are in place, don't let fear tell you that you can't. Because fear often blows things way out of proportion. You get like sweaty palms and a panic attack over something that's very minor. In our society, you can handle quite a lot of risk without doing much damage whatsoever to yourself personally. I mean, one of the worst things that can happen, assuming that you stay within the rules and color in the lines and don't get money from a loan shark or something, one of the worst things that can happen is bankruptcy. And that's not nearly as bad as going to debtor's prison in the 1800s was. So just keep that in mind, that really there are not nearly the risks now that there used to be in the old days. So I kind of disagree with this idea that you don't need courage, you just need to be good. Even if you're excellent at something, it does take a leap of faith to decide, okay, can I do the things that I'm not necessarily excellent at that are surrounding this? So if you're an excellent artist, maybe you're not excellent at marketing that art. So how do you deal with that? Because there are excellent artists. Vincent van Gogh was not a success in his life. He just wasn't. But many people believe he's one of the greatest artists ever. So just being really good and working really hard doesn't really mean anything to me. I think that that's kind of table stakes, to borrow a gambling term, that you have to work really hard at what you're doing if you want to see results. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to be scary to take the plunge and do that. Because it's so much easier to work for minimum wage at McDonald's than start a business or follow a dream or learn about your passion. That's just the way it is. There are easy things that you can do that if you work hard at them, you will be perhaps moderately successful. And I really want to impact eternity. I just do. I want people to discuss what I do, not necessarily me by name. It's okay if I'm forgotten, but I hope that the whole trajectory of the church changes. Now that's kind of crazy talk, but I don't care. I want lives and eternities to change, and I've seen it happen, so I know it can. So that's why I think passion is key. Absolutely key. So, one final question. If I don't find any more here. And that was today on Google Plus. Jeremy Smith was asking, has anyone had any experience working with live status boards at all? Maybe a dedicated display from a laptop or a mobile device? And he showed a picture of one. And it made me think that there were all kinds of great uses for that. Sumall, which I've been talking to the founder of Sumall, Dane Atkinson, and they've got some great plans. So I'm using that to kind of track my progress, because I figure if enough people engage, then the money will follow. Not that I'm doing this for money, I just would like to be able to support myself and my family. So that's my goal. A very modest support. So I think that would be a good plan to have a board like that. I also think maybe Google Analytics running all the time to see when people are on your site. Maybe you could glean something from that. Maybe have a live Twitter feed. That seems like a good idea. I could have the chat room from my site up all the time. So there are a lot of ideas for how you could do, or what you could do on it. I think that when OS X Mavericks, the new version of the Mac operating system, comes out in the fall, they've got this really cool idea where you can take a virtual display, and here I'm thinking primarily of an Apple TV hooked up to an HD TV, and that becomes a new display for your system. So in effect, right now my laptop can support one display out in addition to the built-in display. I could have a third. So that's a pretty cool idea, and I probably wouldn't do anything, crazy intensive, but just something fun. So next week, I'll be doing the drawing for the winners on the ChurchTechCast.com Summer of Giveaways June giveaway, July 1st. I'll be publicizing the winners for that. It's not too late to enter, so go ahead over to bit.ly/SOG6-13. That's bit.ly/SOG6-13. That stands for Summer of Giveaways 613, June 13, June of 2013, if that helps you remember that. So I'll have a new link later, and we'll discuss the giveaway for next month at that time. I'm really happy that all of you have joined me on the live feed. Let's see here. Let me see if there is anything else I want to answer. Oh, someone on Church Technical Leaders was talking about incorporating GoPro cameras into their live switching, and I think in certain situations that might be good. I will mention that I looked into GoPros for my live stuff here, and I talked to someone who dealt with them, and one of the primary reasons I wanted to have a different camera was for my high key set that's to my left, and the GoPro is auto iris, so that wouldn't work any more than my webcam does. So that's something that I would be concerned about, is with crazy lights going on in the stage, how would the GoPro handle that, or would it always be irising up and down and up and down and up and down, trying to compensate for lighting conditions? there are some format concerns, some latency concerns, some other things like that. But that's exactly what I'd be uh, considering. I am thinking about adding the Hauppauge PVR2 into my mix. I think, well, if you're interested in helping, go on ahead to trinitydigitalmedia.com/blog, and on the sidebar, I have a little icon, a little ad basically that is just a link to Amazon that includes my affiliate link. So if you're going to buy something at Amazon, it costs you no extra to do this. Just use that. You can even drag that up into your bookmark bar, and every time you go to Amazon, just click that to go to Amazon instead of typing in Amazon.com, and I will get a little bit of that money. Not a lot, but every bit helps. Also, if you'd like to donate, feel free to head over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/blog, and I've got a PayPal button on the side that I'm happy to take donations for gear. The two big pieces are the Hauppauge PVR, and the one that seems like a pipe dream right now is the Blackmagic ATEM production studio, which would enable me to have my own switcher. So I'm excited about that as a possibility, but right now it's out of my reach. So we're looking at about $1,200 to $1,500 to make all that happen, and then I could switch between my T3i good camera and the computer here, and just add another layer so I could do live to tape that's just a little bit better. So keep that in mind. If you have any other questions, feel free to submit them. Paul at trinitydigitalmedia.com. Give me a call on the voicemail 1-877-763-3246, or join us on the live stream. This show records every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern on ChurchTechCast.com. And until next time, hold on. Might have a quick question, and I'd hate to put it off a week if I don't have to. Let's see this question. Okay, yeah, that's an old one. So until next week, go out and change eternity.